And so, first of all, to introduce myself for those that don't know me, Bec from Ochre, and my business that works with a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander artists all around the country on different design projects and branding and marketing. And we're based here on Kaurna country, so I pay my respects to elders past and present here at the beautiful Adelaide Plains region that we have the privilege of working on. And Kristal I've known for some time now, a few years in the Indigenous business space, in the Indigenous business women's space. We're good mates and partners, and you know, just see each other everywhere we go on Supply Nation matters and things. So it's excellent to be sharing what Kristal's been up to in the last couple of years, because I'm a huge fan.
And
do you want to introduce yourself a little?
Well, I was going to say, and isn't it funny that last year we discovered that our birthday is the same day? Like, that is just so random, honestly.
I know. Yeah. No wonder we click.
There is actually a big 3107 club now. Like, I seriously have there's probably about 6 or 7 people that are all born on that same day. I just can't believe how popular it is.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
So I'm here on beautiful Bec country on the sunny mid-north coast, in a place called Port Macquarie. It's a little bit overcast today, but we had a beautiful weekend here, and I spent some time down the beach, which was really, really great. I'm a proud Jarwin and Wiradjuri woman, and I've been on Bec country for about 10 years now, or it could be actually even longer than that, which is really, really nice. And I'm the Managing Director of IPS Management Consultants, and we're a certified Indigenous consulting company, and we are based sort of everywhere. Our head office is in Bunbury, but we're obviously got an office here in Queensland as well. And we're a national business, so we have a national footprint.
Excellent, awesome. And I should mention as well, I'm Paramount Ngarrindjeri woman here. So Paramount's Adelaide Hills, Ngarrindjeri, the Coorong of South Australia. If you know the Storm Boy movie, it's my country. And I think, sort of to kick off, Kristal, can you share, sort of just from a personal perspective, you know, we talk about Indigenous business and all those things, but, you know, as an Aboriginal person, like what that means for you personally in terms of this space and this industry?
Yeah, I feel very honoured to be an Indigenous woman in business, and I think, you know, I'm a big advocate for it. And I think back when I was a little girl growing up in Housing Commission in the western suburbs of Sydney, you know, if I look back at that and think, would that little girl have ever thought that she could run a business and be a successful businesswoman? The answer would be no, because that's not what I saw around me. I saw a lot of poverty. I mean, I was living in poverty. And, you know, people just within my family, where they could, they just got a job, you know, and many of my family members had to leave school early to care for other family members. You know, my mum comes from a family of 10 kids, and so, yeah, like, she never finished school. So for me, it's almost like I've got to pinch myself every now and then and go, oh my gosh, I'm in business. How did this happen? And I don't know, it's not something that I've done alone. Like, I've got some really great business partners who are older than me and had run businesses before. And so I've had that advantage of having some great people around me that have helped mentor me and guide me. But yeah, I don't know, I feel an overwhelming sense of self-determination, that I'm in control of my life. I'm in control of a business. I get to do some really good, cool shit in my business that has a lot of great meaning and impact. And I think that that's probably something that's the most important, because what's that old cliche saying? You know, you find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. And that's actually how I feel, because I love what I do. I love the people I get to work with, the places I get to go, and the difference that I get to make through the work that I do. And so, you know, I feel really, really lucky and fortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. Ditto. Yeah, it's great. And so today we're talking about your groovy book. I know you got yours on standby as well. So I've got a bunch of questions for you on this. I think just to start with, like, where did this initially come from? Like, you just suddenly felt like writing a book one weekend.
Yeah. Actually, there's a little story that goes, and actually, I had the idea for the book in 2016, and it was because I was working as a subcontractor while we were still trying to get IPS up and running. I was doing some subcontracting work to other Indigenous businesses. And I went up to Queensland to co-facilitate an event, and I met a visual artist, a lady named Diane. And after the event, like Diane, just, I meet people all the time, and you always sort of stay in contact. She sent me, she goes, "Can I have your address? I'm going to send you a book." She sent me 2 books, and one of the books was a book called How to Bake a Book. And she'd actually written this book on how to produce your own book. And then I rang her up and I said, "This book's amazing. I want to write a book." And she's like, "Okay, well, I can help you." And so we started some little bit of legwork around, well, what should I write a book about? And, what needs to be in it? And she sent me this big list of questions and asked me to answer those because it would help shape my thinking. And I did. And then we did a little bit of research, and then all of a sudden IPS, the business, just went, it was towards the end of 2016, just went gangbusters. And coming into 2017, we were just so busy. So the book just went to the back burner, and I said, "Thanks, Diane, for your help. I'm not going to worry about it right now. I'm too busy. My business has just blown up." And I didn't think about it. And then in September 2018, I had a baby, and I had all this time on my hands. Now, a lot of people go, "You had all this time, but you had a baby." Well, if you know what kind of person I am, I'm a person that actually doesn't stop. And so regardless of having a baby, does not mean my life stops or I've got baby brain and I don't want to be active and all of that. I keep a really, really solid routine. But I knew I was having 3 months off, and I knew I wanted to come back to business with a big bang. I was suffering with some sort of, I guess, a bit of anxiety about coming back into the business, and by no reasons from any external factors, but just within myself. I was thinking to myself, what about if I can't come back at my peak? What about if I, if this is it now, like I've hit my ceiling, what am I going to do? I need to do something. I need to have a great project for this, for coming back for the year of 2019 to say, yep, this is what I achieved when I come back. And so I said to my business partners, I wanted to write this book a couple of years ago and I never got around to doing it. Do you think as one of my projects in coming back to work could be that I write this book? And they were like, yeah, go for it, do it. And so they said, well, when would you want to release this book? And I said, well, I think ideally I'd want to bring it out in May at Supply Nation Connect, perfect time to have some books. So I hadn't even started writing yet. I only had the skeleton and the concept. And I contacted Diane and I said, I need you as my book coach. I needed you to help me get through this. And so she did. I engaged her to be my book coach to help me through the process. One of the first things we did is we contacted a printer and we said, by what time do you need to have the book completely edited? And they said, oh, by mid-April. Now, this was the end of January. So just to put so much pressure on myself, I did it. And so I had less than 4 months to write. And I had to write at the same time as studying at university, managing people in business and managing projects and writing. So as you can imagine, a lot of late nights and, I don't know, running out of words and trying to put stuff together, and all this stuff that I know in my head from my years of experience. How do I translate that out? So that's sort of the backstory of where the book
Right.
came from. I know it sounds like a long story, but yeah, that's sort of, and for me, it gave me a real sense of accomplishment. And anyone that's a mother, I reckon it would really resonate with you in that sense of the pressure you do put on yourself around, being the businesswoman, someone who can work and provide, but also being the mother and juggling that. So
yeah, absolutely. And no, I like the backstory because for lots of people talk about the idea of wanting to write a book one day and things like that, and it's always one day sort of thing. But you had that starting point, and then there was a pause, and then life happens, and you've got sort of the availability to do something like that. And then also, do you think it helped that you had a bit of a short time frame to actually get it done, rather than them saying, 12 months from now sort of thing? Like, was it easier for you to work to that time pressure?
I've always worked my best under pressure. If you give me the least amount of time, I will get something done to a really high standard than if I had a lot of time. It's the 80-20 rule,
Yes.
80% of the work gets done in 20% of the time, and that generally is me.
Yeah, I totally resonate with you there, absolutely. And obviously the topic being supplier diversity, and in the early pages of the book you're talking about like what that is and what that sort of means for our society, our business community, etc. Like how obviously that's important to you in your daily life as a business person and all the consulting you were doing. But how did you come to the point of deciding this was the topic and really wanting to, like, why it was so important for you to bring your passion into words on a page?
Yeah. I think because I identified that there was a gap in the marketplace for a book like this. And obviously I'm so passionate about seeing Indigenous businesses grow. And I've played a key role on working on sort of both sides of the intersection for many years. So I do a lot of work with corporate and government Australia around engaging with Indigenous businesses and a lot of advocacy. And then on the flip side of that, I've done so much work with other Indigenous businesses to get them to understand procurement and get themselves ready to be contract ready to do business. And so I felt like I was in a really good position that I had an understanding of both sides. And then, yeah, as I said, there was a gap in the marketplace. So nobody in Australia has ever written a book on supply diversity ever. So it's the very first book on this particular topic. And so, yeah, if you look online and you search for supply diversity, you see a lot of overseas material. So because supply diversity has come from America, it's been in America for more than 45 years. And we haven't seen, that translation into very much Australian-based material on it. So for me, what I thought is that not so much about the book itself, but what it could actually do to help people is be something that was really a quick, easy read, but would direct people on, what, the actual how of what they should do next. And then, I thought, well, that would be my way of being able to get both sides to do more business together. So, I've been thinking of, a lot of Indigenous businesses have actually read my book, and then they've learned a lot based on what I'm explaining to corporate government. And I've almost thought about, do I write a book that's focused for the Indigenous businesses now? But I think you can use the book in reverse as well anyway.
Yeah, I've certainly, the reading that I've been doing, it's been meaningful to us as an Indigenous business as well as the audience. So the audience you were originally writing for, who was the person, the avatar that you were really thinking about as you were writing it? Like, ideally, if this book ended up in their hands, that would be amazing. And if they took something off.
It was broadly for corporate and government Australia. and for anybody that deals with procurement or makes buying decisions. So it's designed for them, and anybody that's a buyer that wants to know the why of they should buy from Indigenous businesses and the how to do it.
Sure. And has there been any surprises for you in terms of people that have given some feedback to you that they've found it helpful, and it's like somebody you weren't expecting, or a type of role that they're in?
I haven't necessarily been surprised of particular roles or something, but I got one review on Google, and I thought that was pretty hot. So I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't anticipate that. But I've had Indigenous businesses buy my book. I've had governments. And I've had a lot of support from the Victorian government. So they've purchased quite a number of copies. Indigenous chambers of commerce have purchased copies. A lot of the peak organisations, so Supply Nation and Indigenous Defence Consortium, have purchased copies to give to then give on. So it's been really. I guess it's just surprising in how well it's sold. I'm not a bestseller or anything. We're not getting into that numbers, but I'm just surprised that I have already been on. I'm on my second print run, which is that was pretty surprising that happened, because I didn't anticipate to run out of books straight away.
That's so great. That's fantastic. And so the launch you had at the Connect for Supply Nation, and did that see some energy and take up there? Yeah,
definitely did. And I was really grateful that Supply Nation supported me to have sort of the mini launch within the trade show and to sign copies. And they bought a number of copies that were given away to members that came along to one of the sessions that I facilitated. So it was just, it was still, I still look back and think how surreal. I'm an author. I wrote a book. Oh my God, okay. I know something. Because I'm far from an academic, and that's been one of the interesting feedbacks I've had. Like, people have said to me, like, it's your book's written totally your voice, your tone. I said, well, I wanted it to be like that. I wanted it to be that you're as you're reading it, you're thinking, this is what Kristal would be saying to me,
Absolutely.
In that kind of in that sort of language. That's how I talk. All of that.
Yeah,
and I moved all the swearing out of it.
Actually, and that was one of the comments I think I've said to you as well. When I first picked it up and started reading, I could hear your voice. Having known you for a few years already, I know your style and your voice. But I also thought, oh, how wonderful, because this space of supply diversity and Indigenous procurement and things like that can be a bit to get your head around, particularly if you're an organisation that doesn't even have a reconciliation action plan. This can be really new and a bit scary and a bit, I don't want to do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing. So when you pick up a book and you're reading it from someone that you don't know, and it's in that conversational tone and really like warm, it just invites, I think, that conversation. Was that your intent that you write it in that way, or was it just your style?
It was my intent through and through. Yeah. I've got my little bookshelf here. I've got heaps and heaps of books, but what I find is that for myself, because in my work, my day-to-day work, I'm reading so much material. I have to review papers, I've got to write stuff. So reading for pleasure for me has to wait to say, school holidays or when I'm actually away from work. And so I didn't want the book to be something that people purchased and then it just sat there as a dust collector. I wanted it to be something that you start and it's so quick and easy to read that you finish it really quickly. You get through it. So it was very deliberate, the tone, the language, and it was very deliberate in the number of pages. I didn't want it to be more than 200 pages either.
Yeah. And in terms of, obviously, the topic is pretty specific, but was there any specific takeaways that you really wanted to get, other than helping people have an understanding of what supply diversity is and why it's important, broadly speaking? Was there anything really specific that you, like, if you could wave a magic wand over it, wish for in terms of someone's takeaway from it?
Yeah, there's stuff in the front that I really wanted people to, I guess, understand. And so I in the start of the book, I talk about the barriers and challenges for Indigenous businesses. And then I've also got some myth busting that's within the book as well. And I really wanted those things to be taken seriously, like, so that you have an understanding around how we do business. And there's so much bias, whether it be conscious or unconscious, that exists within our sector. And I guess I wanted to just hit the nail on the head, for instance, with a couple of really key, issues, and just let everybody have it within the book. And I think the other thing is really the unpacking of the benefits and why this is so important. I think you have to understand the why in order, and it's got to be a why, not just from here, oh, this is the right thing to do, but from here because you genuinely believe in the impact that supply diversity can have on Indigenous businesses, the business owners, and flow on through to their family and community. So the how side of the book, I quite often say, look, it's not a one size fits all. This is some guidance. It's really going to depend on what your business industry is, what you do, how big you are, all of that. That stuff can be, changed and be flexible, but the why, I think, is probably the most critical part.
Yeah, great. And for you personally as well, in the journey of actually writing it, were there any, particularly if anyone else is thinking of writing a book or about to start, were there any particular challenges that you want to share that you overcame, or have any tips on, particularly when you've got a short time frame to get something completed like you did?
Definitely. I never really quite understood writer's blank until I started writing this book, because at a high level you might have a concept, but then trying to unpack it and explain it particularly when stuff's really innate to you and you know it because you live and breathe it, how do you explain that to other people and then put it in words? And so quite often I'd have the shell of the book out, the framework, and I would go from different sheet to different sheet, and what my book coach would tell me to do is just sit and just let everything get out of your head, and then come back and then try and structure it into some sentences and stuff like that. Because if you sit there for too long trying to get each sentence perfect, you don't actually get much done. So that was a big key learning was, okay, this is this particular topic. All right, let's just put everything that I know about it, get it all out, and then try and come back and wordsmith that up. I thought that was that was probably the biggest learning, because there were times where I just have this mental blank and I'd go, how do I explain that? What does that mean? What does that mean to me? Okay, all right. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm conscious of the time as well. We don't want to hold you up too much today. We're so appreciative that you're spending lunch with us today. So, but I thought maybe we might open it up to a few questions from our audience. So if anyone, if you actually, it might help us to track the questions and share back to others later. There's a Q&A area that people might see down the bottom of the screen. If you click on that, you can actually ask a question to Kristal about the book, or about Indigenous procurement, supply diversity as a topic, about, are you writing a book and you need a tip from the now expert published author?
Can't wait.
Yes. And while we're waiting for those questions, Kristal, is there anything else that you wanted to share about this book, or for people that haven't seen it or read it yet? Any other?
Well, you can still got copies if anyone wants to get a copy. And I just think, like, just during this time at the moment where we're currently in, you know, a pandemic that's unprecedented, and, you know, lots of businesses and industries are doing it really, really hard. And all I would encourage everybody is to think about, I guess, the Indigenous business sector, who it's taken a lot longer for our sector to grow to what it is today. And there's been so much investment in it. And so one of the biggest fears that I've had throughout the last 5-6 weeks has been that we would see the gains that we've created in the sector be lost if we didn't continue to focus on it. And it's been great to see that the government has invested $50 million to support the Indigenous business sector, but us two can all play a role. Something that I've been doing is every week I make a purchase from an Indigenous business. And so it's all been very random. But if I'm sitting on Instagram and I see something pop up, I buy it. So since this has started, this pandemic has started, I've got myself lots of new shirts, earrings. I got a yoga mat. I've bought prebiotic bars, a towel. So yeah, I'm randomly buying stuff just to support other Indigenous businesses. So I think, as I'm just saying, every dollar counts. One little small purchase that you make from another Indigenous business goes a long way to supporting our economy. So do it.
Absolutely.
Indigenous.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. It's something that we share a lot as well in what we're doing at Ochre Dawn, and trying to help, whether it's artists that we're working with and making sure that they're paid appropriately through some royalties for their products, things that we're selling on our website. And of course, a little plug there that speaking of this book, anyone that purchases on our website for the month of April, you go into the draw winning a copy of Supplier Diversity by Kristal. And so that's just sort of looking at ways that we can support each other as our mob loves to do. So we have a question come through from Danny. So, do you see procurement managers measure their engagement against APIC IPP?
Very good question, and one, because we're here in the state of New South Wales, we have two types of policy. So there's an Aboriginal procurement policy, and we have the Aboriginal procurement, Aboriginal participation in construction, which is the APIC, which is Danny's referring to. I have seen not a lot of success or traction with the New South Wales Aboriginal procurement policies. I gave a lot of feedback to the review. There was a 1-year review that was undertaken late last year. And as a subsequent, there's been something like 70 odd recommendations that have been generated to help improve the policy. One of the things, it's funny how you say about measurement, because that's probably the area that I've been the biggest critic on, is that there is no mechanism for reporting against the New South Wales Aboriginal procurement policy in our state. So each of the departments or portfolios should be working towards a certain target that all then comes in combined, and it should all be data that's being captured with the Department of Finance, who oversee the policy. So at this point in time, no, I don't see any of them measuring at the department level, and then that feeding into the broader whole of government mechanism. It's something that they should be doing. They have a broad target that's of 3%, but there's no way of understanding who is doing their bit. And so, I've been quite critical of New South Wales. Particularly, New South Wales is the only state that also has a pre-qualification scheme that businesses have to go through in order to get on the New South Wales Government Supplier Directory, which is a massive barrier, and it took IPS more than 8 months to get pre-qualified. So if I have a very strong, reputable business, and my business has struggled, imagine what other businesses that probably don't have the same, level of revenue or staff or capability, how they might struggle around that. So I definitely think there's more work to be done around measurement and reporting. There's no point having a policy if you're not going to, make sure that everybody's doing their bit. So,
Absolutely.
and that's one of the things I talk about in my book as well is, there's a whole education piece that has to happen. You can't just have one person or one team that's, we're focused on the Indigenous business and it's not translated across the organisation. It's the same with a wrap, if there's not buy-in across the organisation for a wrap, it can become quite tokenistic, become a tick and flick exercise rather than being something that's really meaningful and purposeful and can create change, and that everybody understands the commitment and the why.
Absolutely. Oh, and I think we've got time for this last question as well. So should registered or certified companies provide government agencies and subcontractors with the forms used to measure percentages on the Aboriginal participation portal as a way forward?
Yeah, definitely you should. Yeah, look, I think definitely you should be leveraging that to say, under this policy, you've got a requirement. This is what what's your contribution to meeting this target. The only problem we have in New South Wales is that the target, it's a whole of government. It's not specific to particular departments. So it is very hard to sort of go, what's been your contribution to the 3% or not. But you definitely should be, letting people know that you're a registered or certified business, letting people know, are you aware that there is a policy? I know that I have had to educate and bring awareness to lots and lots of people across both state and federal government about the Indigenous procurement policy and say, did you know that the IPP is there? Do you know that there's a mandatory set aside? Do you know you don't have to go through the normal Commonwealth procurement rules because of the exemption? And some people are like, oh, really? But then others are a little bit more risk averse and are like, oh, bypassing Commonwealth procurement rules, is that safe? Is it okay? Yeah, it is.
Yes, we have the same thing, both federally and with our state government clients as well, just sort of that education. Sometimes the message hasn't been communicated to them or they've forgotten. And so just those reminders sometimes are helpful, but same thing, as much, there are still those risk adverse clients as well that want to do it a certain way. So it's great that even the conversation is here, and obviously with the take up of your book, which is so great, and more and more around Supply Nation and reconciliation action plans, RAPs and things, that the conversation is far more than it was a few years ago. Yes, we still have such a long way to go, but at least it's there, and the dialogue is there, and the action is starting to be there as well. Do you find that it's a sense of hope in that way too?
Most definitely. I think we've got a lot of good allies now that are working across corporates and within government as well, and they're helping stand up for us. They're helping refer us, introduce us, and create opportunities. I've said it, it's very cliche, but there has never been a better time to be an Indigenous person in business.
Yes.
And then over these last couple of years, because there's been so much demand for our products and services, so we just got to hang on through this COVID time and out on the other side.
Yes, excellent. And now, as we wrap up, is there recommended ways that people keep connecting with you and IPS on your social channels? Obviously, getting a copy of the book and how they can do that if they don't win it through Ochre Dawn's monthly competition.
Yes, just jump on. You can jump on our website if you want to purchase a book, or you can jump on our Facebook page, IPS Management Consultants. There's a shop now that'll take you straight through to the website. I'm always on LinkedIn, so you can follow me on there or follow me on the other socials as well.
Fabulous. And thanks to those that have joined us today. It's we really appreciate your time on a Monday, having lunch with us, and and enjoying the conversation with Kristal, and we really appreciate that there's so much interest in this space, which is really important. So thanks so much, Kristal. You're so deadly to join us and have a yarn today. So we will continue the conversation.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye then.